Hello and welcome to the Mystic Cast, where you join me, Jack Stafford, a student of metaphysics, a member of the Aetherius Society, the cosmic religion for the Aquarian Age, as we break down the barriers between religion, science, metaphysics, philosophy, and mysticism, all of which are really only aspects of the self-same quest for truth. Please note, this is an independent program, not produced or fact-checked by the Aetherius Society. Today, my guest is Charles Stein. Hello, Charles.
Hello.
It's lovely to have you on the show.
I am happy to be here, I think.
You can reserve judgment. So we wanted to kick things off by talking about Jupiter.
Well, maybe you want to mention who I am a little bit.
Sure. Could you get a brief introduction to yourself?
Okay. My name is Charles Stein. Most of my occupation in life has been as a poet, but I'm also something of a scholar of ancient Greek. And I have recently written a book that has basically taken my whole life to put together, including translations from ancient Greek that I connect with the figure of Hermes and the Hermetic teacher, deity, etc., Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great Hermes. I have been working on both a contemplative I have a contemplative practice in the context of Dzogchen Buddhism, and I have something of an intellectual practice in which I have taken a position in which it's possible to think exactly the range of subjects that you listed in your introduction, within a single transformation of the very nature of thinking, so that thinking is no longer something that's separated from consciousness, for instance, such as could be put into a computer.
Why Hermes, though? Why do you feel such a connection?
Well, the connection, that's just one connection. My point is that in our tradition, in the Piscean tradition, which has always got two fishes running in opposite directions, or at least oblique to each other, you have a separation between the part of one's being that produces thoughts, that produces concepts, that understands through concepts, and the principle of consciousness itself, of awareness itself, pure awareness. That pure awareness is not identifiable with the things that one is aware of, but is a principle of being itself that manifests in human form. And my formulation is everything that appears, that comes to appearance, whether it's for the intellect, for the intuition, for the visionary things, for contemplative states, whatever it is that comes to appear, has as its very nature and appearance the claim of being. When I look at this orange bottle, I think it's an orange bottle. It has an appearance, I could describe it, but what it is the claim that what it appears to be is telling you about something that really exists, really is.
Dr. King had a very good lecture about man's mind, and he said, he didn't specifically say the orange bottle, but let's stick with that. And he said the orange bottle is only an orange bottle because it believes it is an orange bottle.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of ways in which one can open language to say such things. My point is that being itself, and the thinker that I'm following here is the ancient Greek thinker Parmenides, whose influence on the whole of Western tradition is almost as its point of origin, is Parmenides. And Parmenides had one idea, and it's that only being is. Everything, nothing that appears is as it appears, but everything that appears is a kind of transmission or report of being itself, so that one doesn't have to deny or repress or overcome or transform even of one's experience. That is to say, that one actually is awake, that there's some kind of consciousness that is aware, that one doesn't have to repress the awareness in order to come to that which transcends all phenomena, because it's sitting right there in the midst of it. And so there's a contemplative practice that doesn't follow the ancient Platonic tradition of, as it were, climbing up above all the possibilities of appearance, and climb to something that's outside it. Our path, and the path, I think, indeed, of what one would call the Aquarian age, is a path in which the transcendence is found in the other direction.
Well, Dr. King, Dr. King is the master for the Aquarian age, so Jesus was the master for the Piscean age. So we get all our thinking, our teachings from Dr. King, and they talk about, because everything is changeable, it's not real, it's unreality. So the only thing that doesn't change is God. And so we are all, none of this is real because we're changing.
That's, in a sense, that's what Plato says. When Plato creates the idea of the eternal forms, the ideas that are not changing, it's because of the changing nature of phenomena that he will say that. Now, my view is that what you're calling God is being itself. And being is not limited to what things are, or even that things are. It's a principle that allows things to come to appear to be. And our activity is what I call configuration. That is, as in, if anybody knows the basic history of modern art, one realizes that towards the end of the 19th century, people stopped finding it necessary to make images that were images of something that existed, and began to discover abstract forms. So if you called art that represents nature or human beings, etc., if you call that figuration, you make a figure of something, you could call what the abstract artists were concerned was non-figurative images that were not figures of actual things. Yeah. But in the contemporary world, at a certain point, artists began to discover that the techniques for producing abstraction also generated a world of imagination that returned to kind of figuration, which I call configuration. That is not figure in the sense that it really is asserting that it's an image of something, but it nonetheless is making an image of something. So I then extend that idea of configuration to thinking that there's a way of thinking in which one is not making a claim that the content of one thought is absolutely true in its own sense, but that one takes it as a revelation of being, and therefore reacts to that by configuring something that stands for one's experience, or that manifests that experience. So that's my view. And then within that view, it's possible to see that there is essential truths in each mythological or religious or spiritual teachings in its own terms and its own context. It allows being to manifest in this particular concrete way through its practices. So it's, to me, and similarly, if all one has to do is ping science and to show that it's within its own terms, it's incredibly powerful in its capacity to put us into a relationship with material things. But by material things, well, it's a whole other trip.
Yeah, no, I understand that. We exist in a sea of mind, and consciousness is mind slowed down to our particular, so we can understand it.
Okay, but then we know through practices of different kinds of yoga, concentration, meditation, and contemplation, that it's possible to find that limited consciousness that's configured, it itself is in continuous and immediate contact with being itself, which is not even big or small. It's beyond space and time. So that there is in the immediacy of our experience, in the now itself, that atemporal, eternal, non-temporal being itself, because being in Parmenides' language. Parmenides wrote a single poem in about 500 BC, in which the assertion that being is and only being is, and everything else is opinion or appearance, because he will say actually, in my translation, everything that appears to be, or everything that seems to be. And so the contrast between mere opinion, apparency, and being is a false contrast. It is a contrast. It exists in what the Greeks called indefinite duality. That is to say, if you say it's one, it immediately looks like it's two. And if you say it's two, the two immediately become one. And that relationship between being and appearance is that indefinite duality. There is no appearance except what is. And yet, everything that appears only appears to be. In other words, if you look at appearance, the only thing that is in it is its claim to be, and that being is manifesting through it. If you say that only being is, well, then you have to deal with appearance, because it seems that being is the very possibility of things coming to appearance. So it's two and one, or it's not two, it's not one. It's something for which the word being, I always say, is one word too many. But it's the only word which is one word too many.
So what's the difference between the Piscean age and the Aquarian age then, if the Piscean age is these two fish swimming?
Well, I mean, I don't claim to have absolute knowledge of it. What I go by is really Jung's understanding of it, which is that the age, well, it's a combination of Jung and the poet William Butler Yeats. And Yeats has developed a visionary system. And the visionary system was about two symbolic forces, solar force and the lunar force. And the solar force is the force of sacrifice in relationship to a higher truth. And the lunar force is imagination, the projection of one's own fantasy into an imagistic form. But Jung thinks that basically the Aquarian age took as its ideal image the image on the astrological system, that's its opposition. So the opposition to Pisces, which is the previous age, is Virgo, 180 degrees, of course. And the ideal image that configures the value for the Piscean age comes from that image. So in other words, the image of the virgin female, or an image of manifest purity. Aquarian, the precession of the equinoxes goes backwards. So that's why it's a precession. It moves backwards. So the sign that follows a Pisces is Aquarius. I gotta say, is before it is Aquarius. So we're now into Pisces, I think. Yeah, and we've just come out of Aquarius, and the image that is in opposition to Aquarius is Leo. So Leo represents dynamic, energetic, more or less chthonic forces, and so that the age switch is switching to an opposite. So the opposite of a vision of celestial purity in the form of a virgin, but also that the gaze of one's being is upward. To that which transcends, that which is more universal, that which is in the ancient world, in an earth-centered universe. Clearly, up is high, down is low, and those are not ambiguous; they're clear. But in the Aquarian age, Jung thought, beginning really in the Renaissance, but before that, already you have the image. That image is, well, the Aquarian. Each age is approximately 2,200 years. So the period of the Christian era is the period of Pisces, and Jung points out that in the Gospels you have again and again these images of fish, the men. I am a fisher of men. The multiplying of the loaves, all of those different images have a connection with Christ and the fish. But the main point is that there is a switch in the archetypal dominant. That would be the Jungian language, the dominant image that controls or compels or colors the age. That image is now shifted from the heavens to the earth. And you see that in the beginning of a complete fascination with material mechanism that even precedes the rise of science, but then the growing of empirical science as a focusing of attention on the very things that the Aquarian spirituality wishes to transcend and get above. In the Aquarian age, one discovers that being is not prejudiced about above or below or matter or spirit, but you can reach it just as well by going down as by going up. And the condition under which that actually preserves say it exists in the West in an esoteric context is alchemy. And the reason that's pertinent is that for the Greeks, and particularly Plato, the manifest world was, on the one hand, was I'm sorry, I'm an old guy and I have momentary lapses.
Gives me a chance to catch up. I mean, I'm punching way above my intellectual weight here. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's interesting you say that, because the materialistic, we're here. We're here in this classroom, Earth. We're going through materialism. We're here to master matter. We're here to learn about.
Yes.
And this is the Dr. King. He was a master of radionics as well, and combining spirituality with science. Practicality.
Here's the point I'm making about alchemy, because my book is largely about alchemy. Is that the Greeks, the word that we translate as matter, is the word that originally meant something like wood, but it was that which receives the forms. So matter has no form, but it becomes a bottle, a television set, a book, a stone, a chair, a human being. It becomes those things by receiving the projection of the forms from the eternal world, from the world of the forms, from the world that's not in time, that doesn't change, but projects images or forms onto matter. So matter takes on form, but has no form in itself.
That's we're told that by the masters that man's only creative faculty is imagination.
Okay, all power to the imagination, etc., according to Guy Debord. In the Platonic system, there is an ultimate principle which is the origin of both the human mind, the divine mind, the gods, and the forms. And this is at first emanation of a principle of being that is simply called the one, or sometimes the good. In Plato, it's justice, the good, beauty. All are these archetypal manifestations of that which itself has no form.
Yeah, spirit is unmanifested.
Yeah, or what you call God. That God Himself doesn't have the form of what He creates.
But you have to be above what you create. You can
to find the
creator is always above what he creates.
Well, yes, but that's true in ordinary Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, but it's not true in alchemy. And here's the problem that the Neoplatonists, the Platonists, proposed to themselves: that how could you differentiate the lowest thing in the hierarchy, which is pure matter that has no forms, from the highest thing in the hierarchy, which also has no form, since it's only form that makes it possible to make a difference.
Well, truth always has two poles, so.
Well, yeah. What the most important later Platonist, a man named Plotinus, who was in fact an Egyptian, solves the problem by saying that the form of matter, which has no form, is the one itself, which has no form. And so there's a direct connection from the bottom of the system, which is matter itself, and the top of the system.
As above, so below.
Huh?
As above, so below.
As above, so below. In the interesting sense of, on the one hand, above are the are the forms. I mean, the usual way that sentence is taken is that above is the forms and below are the manifestations. In other words, the relationship between things that participate in the forms and the forms themselves is what's above is what's below. What I'm saying is that the secret meaning of that is what's above has no form and what's below has no form. And you can get to the ultimate either way. Part of the development of one's own spirit is the development of one's intelligence, one's understanding in a broad and general way. But that's not going to get you the whole path, because the path itself is actual, concrete, and takes place through what comes to appearance.
Well, take the black magician in the lower astral realms, the involved, the descended masters. They are supremely intelligent, but they are very involved. They're not.
Well, you can. I'm not. My understanding of configuration is that thinking that way may be, in fact, the conditions under which the particular people are practicing. So it's those terms which bring you beyond those terms. But it's all stories. It's images and stories, narratives and things. And the actual awakening is what I call from passing from being a being to being. Mm-hmm. That's the transformation. That would be like becoming one with God, or recognizing that one's own spiritual essence is divine.
Sure, you can't argue with that. I mean, stillness is stillness.
But my point is that you, in thinking, in creating an actual thinking, one has to do it in the broadest possible way, so that you don't end up with things that you think exist but don't exist. You don't create non-being. If there's anything about black magic that I would entertain in my configuration, it's the will to non-being. It's the failure to actually affirm being itself. And in both senses, that things have the dignity of their identity on the one hand, and on the other hand are, in a sense, non-existent.
Well, this is definitely food for thought. I'll have to watch it back and take it into my contemplations. But maybe we could apply your thinking to something we've both been studying here, Jupiter.
Okay, well, you tell me about Jupiter. I read basically what your man says. He has contact with a non-corporeal beings that exist in Jupiter space, but it is Jupiter space.
They're corporeal. They have they're as physical as you are. Yeah.
So they're like a fine
more physical.
More physical. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, closer to the divine, more much greater beings than you or I. Yeah, more in touch with their true aspects. I mean, you and I, we're having a physical experience, then we'll go to the astral plane, we'll have an astral or an etheric experience, then we come back here, but they're in touch with all their aspects at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what my gurus are supposed to be too. Yeah. I mean, in the Tibetan tradition. It's a specific Tibetan tradition. It isn't what's most common, actually.
So
it's something that's called the Great Perfection, and it's the actual experience of Buddhahood.
Oh, wow.
That's what it is, and you view every other kind of practice as a practice that is determined by your actual personal situation. So there's no practice that's the wrong practice, and there's no practice that's the right practice. What's the right practice is called the view, and the view is what you discover through a direct transmission from somebody who has realized the view, and so you have a relationship to a teacher, which is not to the teacher's personality or his history or anything like that. It's simply to your faith in the fact that in the sense that the teacher actually has realization. And so you identify with the mind of the teacher. And that's just understood as pure presence, pure awareness. The example always is given of that pure awareness is like the mirror, and phenomena what appears in the mirror, and that you have to shift your identification from being an object which could be reflected in the mirror to being the mirror itself.
Well, here we go. We're going back to the being. I mean, do you think that the will of our Creator is that we all experience different things? If we all just experience divine states of sin, we wouldn't have all these. It wouldn't have split us all up, to have different experiences.
It certainly seems that the tendency of being in however you think of that, is that it produces endless proliferation of possibilities. It manifests possibilities which seem to be infinite. And actually, I have a whole, I don't even remember whether I talk about it in this book, but a whole use of the image of the mathematical continuum, which is understood as being completely smooth. That is to say, there's no gaps in the continuum. By the continuum, one means either the total space of geometry in as many dimensions and as many different kinds of geometry as there would be, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the actual endless proliferation of kinds of being, of kinds of entities. And you see that. I've been studying this amazing book by a man named Merlin Sheldrake. He writes a book, it's called Entangled Life, and it's about mushrooms. Not only mushrooms that are like psilocybin mushrooms or psychedelic mushrooms, but basically the whole world of fungi as being fundamentally connected to every kind of plant life. That there's no plant life on Earth without without basically the fungi which create from sand, soil, or from dirt, from what would the actual integument of the soil, etc. But what it shows is a world of nature which is infinitely complex and never resolvable to a concatenation of mere individuals. The individuals are all, I mean, there are even the lichen, for instance, have two genetic codes, two different, and then it turns out actually more than that they have two DNAs that have in evolution have come to cooperate with each other rather than compete with each other. And neither could exist without the actually being combined in the same form. So that sense of multiplicity is a multiplicity of forms. Mm-hmm. Forms themselves come into being. That they are not exactly the opposite of that which is transitory, but that the mystery of time itself is the non-duality of serious impermanence, that what's gone is really gone, and that the now, which is the one thing that makes anything concrete, it's the most concrete concept, that the now doesn't change. The now is eternal. And that every moment in one is focused on what's immediately present now, in the same way that one can pay attention to matter. Through the now is where the spirit awakens. So that the possibility of the coming to be of this endless multiplicity of not only things but forms, that is the world of appearance. But the thing that we most definitely feel is real is what's happening instantly right now before my senses. And it's not the content that's the now. If all the now was simply the content at a passing moment, the picture of the world by Einstein would be right. The time is just another dimension of space. There would be nothing concrete. Einstein himself says physics can't deal with the now.
Yeah, time is.
But we are stuck with it, and being stuck with it is the greatest blessing.
Well, time doesn't exist. Going back to Jupiter, they experience time in a different way. Time is a limitation imposed.
As it what?
Time is a limitation.
Yeah. Okay. So you're actually working into the atemporal, because that seems to be the possibility of all of our theosophies and anthroposophies and what is your thing?
Aetherius Society. Yeah.
Aetheria, yeah.
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 I mean,
Time is,
I have a very good friend named Robert Podgorski, who is a practicing magician and alchemist. And he is writing a book, and he's finished it. It's going to be published, which is on the history of the notion of ether,
oh, wow, yeah, that's the,
going from the aether as the Greek word for the subtle atmosphere, up to nitrous oxide and using ether for laughing gas or for knocking you out.
Saint Germain was probably one of the most famous alchemists. No?
Oh yeah.
In our tradition, we believe he was an ascended master, taken from Theosophy as well.
Okay.
So he'd gone through the initiation of enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, then ascension, so he could live on in the
So
physical body.
the
for thousands of years.
basic language is the Theosophy.
Well, the Theosophical Society was envisaged by the ascended masters, the spiritual hierarchy of Earth.
Well, I know that's its construction, sure.
Of which Saint Germain, and then the Aetherius Society was envisaged by the cosmic masters.
I see. So but it uses those categories of
Yes.
astral, mental, etheric.
Yes. You see that?
Yeah.
It stands on the shoulders of Theosophy, which stands, on of yoga, and the Tibetan teachings. Of course, it's all this. It's in the same lineage. Yeah.
Okay.
And Dr. King, so he channeled these books. He channeled about 600 transmissions from mostly from Mars and Venus, but also from Jupiter. And we believe that the Master Jesus, he was a Venusian, and we received the 9 freedoms from Mars, an aspect of Mars Sector 6.
I couldn't quite see that.
It's
Hold it up a little bit because I can't read the title.
oh, I got my book.
The 9 freedoms. Okay, well, pull it back maybe.
Yeah, I should.
No, it's all fuzzy. Right, it's all fuzzy to me anyway.
Yeah. But that gives us an insight into, because with Buddhism, for example, maybe the tradition that you're most familiar with, I mean, after becoming a Buddha, what it was my understanding when I studied the Buddhism, obviously not to your level, but that there was a union with God that happened after. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the awakened experience doesn't take place in time and space. So the word after is already a step down to say after. That there is modes of coming to appearance or coming to being in some other way once one has actually overcome the way in which being falls into appearance in our domain. Once one is awakened to that the only being that is right here, and it's not only beyond time and space. There are no concepts by which you can represent it, which after all, in Platonism, the concept is what's lifting you up. But in a certain sense, Buddhism, the concepts is what drags you down, not in the positive sense of a downward spirituality, but simply in the sense that the purity and perfection and infinite possibilities of being itself, which is right here only now.
All right. Well, here's a concept that might give you something to chew on. Is the 7 dimensions of creation? This was something Dr. King channeled. So we exist in 3D. I mean, the length, breadth, height. The 4th dimension, we're told, is time.
Well, that's Einstein.
And then the 5th.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And then the fifth dimension is motion.
Motion.
And then the 6th dimension is mind, and then the 7th dimension is divine will.
Well, as I would say, it's a configuration, which is, if it's the one that you're using to actually enter into those possibilities, that's what you do. My view from Buddhism is that, I mean, I'll put this in my way, is what I'm thinking, that what we call materialism really has 2 branches, and they have the same principle. And the principle of materialism is, of one materialism, only matter is real. And that's what's, today you couldn't say that. That would be a 19th century understanding. But today you would say matter, energy, time, space, and information. Now what is it that they have in common? They have in common the history in which it's insisted upon that terms, the words used to stand for concepts, those terms have to be unambiguous. The same word can't refer to two different things. If you tried to count all the marbles in your marble collection, you want to count them. If you defined a marble as a piece of glass that's never more than 1 inch in diameter, that would have one count. But if you say a marble is only a 1/2 inch in diameter, you would get a different count. So you can't have the word marble meaning two different things that you're counting. So materialism has to do with, one, that the words we use are never ambiguous, and two, that because they're never ambiguous, they can be used to count things. And if you can count the things, that's the best chance you have of predicting what's going to happen to them and of controlling them. So the picture of materialism has these two branches, or well, actually, there's a whole other territory, which I want to say. That this one branch has to do with the concrete physical a matter which we understand as being real because we can count it. So what I say is that the first kind of materialism is only that which can be counted as real. And that is the picture of being that is dominating the whole world. The other side of that picture is that you can use counting to attribute value. So the second materialism is only that which can be counted, that is to say, can be made an equivalent to money, only that is real, or that is the value itself is quantitative. So the two materialisms come together around the question of the quantitative. If you quantifying value, you get money. If you quantify physical phenomena, you get material science. And these are what I'm calling this materialism is what you would call an ontology. Now, the word ontology has become much more common, almost overused these days, but it's taken to mean the study of being. And it takes what are the basic categories that you use for understanding how everything is. That's an ontology. So materialism is an ontology, and it says the only thing that counts as being are things that can be well defined and counted. In other words, quantity. So the question of raising being, Parmenidean being, my sense of being as basically God, is that it has to be something that allows ontologies to come into being, but doesn't pick which ontology is the true one. So, and this is the basic Buddhist view. The Buddhist view is that none of the ways of thinking will bring you to enlightenment. But the enlightenment is so real that when you enter into it, they have infinite possibilities. And the doctrine, well, the practices are immediate awareness, not the content of the awareness, but that the spark of awakening is in the immediacy of what's happening now. It's not what is happening now. It's the thing that makes the now possible. It's not in time. And it's the most immediate and most material thing in the older sense, concrete, actual, particular, concrete, actual, immediate, or all the words that apply to it. It's not because, this is really immediately here, therefore this bottle is enlightened, which you can say in a certain tonality, which would give meaning, because what you would mean by saying that is that your experience, your awareness is now giving you this bottle, and that bottle is not separate from that awareness. That's really what that would mean. I mean, of course, if one wants to enter into psychedelic spaces, the question about the communications from discarnate beings is a subject of scientific study now, because you have all of the people who are thinking about writing about experiences with DMT and psilocybin, etc. The big question in that literature, which is now evolving, is what to make of the entities one meets. You can take, a puff of DMT in a smoke form, and within 30 seconds, you're in a world in which there is this infinite numbers of tiny little beings that are crawling around everywhere.
Have you tried it?
I've had that experience many years ago. Actually, it was during the first wave of psychedelia that I had people were. I lived in the East Village in the late 60s, so I sort of was in the center of one of those worlds.
Oh, back that far, yeah. Wow.
Well, of course, yeah, no, definitely. And because DMT is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, so the present day interest in that thing. But the point is that there is part of contemporary thinking, because the taboo on studying entheogenic substances has been lifted. It's become part of an actual scientific study, and of course the danger is that you quantify it, and of course you're always dealing with quantities to some extent, because the bloody dose of whatever it is that you're taking makes a difference.
Yeah, yoga means union with God, and it's clear that you're on the path of Jnana yoga, the yoga of wisdom.
With the J, jnana. The Tibetan term is she, S-H-E. They say all these words, ye, she, ram, she, that represent different versions of, or different conditions of that state, because the Tibetans really do have many ways of organizing all of these matters that are quite astonishing. I'm always saying that the esoteric in the West is always a rumor. There's always a rumor that there is this secret society of these secret masters and so forth. But the esoteric the doctrine of the Rosicrucians makes its first appearance under a text that has the title of a fama. A fama is a rumor, but it rumor in the sense of something that's broadcast. So the fama of the brotherhood, the rumor of the brotherhood, is the original Rosicrucian text in which it's propagating that rumor. And to me, it's a kind of joke, because once the Counter-Reformation and the Reformation took place, in which the attempt to get rid of all kinds of magic was common to both the Protestants and the Catholics, and happening at the same time as the rise of science, so that the world of Platonism and of mysticism goes underground.
But it's interesting that you're talking about you can think your way to enlightenment, or maybe, as you would say, you can unthink your way.
Well, it's that your contact in direct experience of the very process by which thinking occurs. That's the concrete site of your practice. You catch yourself in the act of thinking, and you discover that what is really there is not the content of the thought.
Right. So these are maybe the teachings that you've studied from the of the Buddhism and from the Greeks and all these great thinkers. But my job has been to try to find the link between the kind of mind that the West evolves and the kind of mind that China and India evolve, really. So with the Dr. King and the teachings for the Aquarian age by the Cosmic Masters is that the yoga of the age is karma yoga, so of action and service to others.
Well, I understand those classical Indian categories.
So this is the age. There's a new language of direct action, and that the way to enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, and ascension is service to others. So rather than going off to a cave or reading your way to it, it can service to others, service to the greater good is the language of direct action, which we're told to follow in the Aquarian age.
Well, in a sense, that it's like the shift from thought to action, as from heaven to earth,
from the east to the western hemisphere.
Yeah.
Well, Charles, I'd love to keep chatting to you, and I hope you'll come back on the show. But I need to put my head in a cold bucket now after trying to keep up with you for 40 minutes. But it's been a real blast.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, it's been fun.
Where can people find your web? If you have a website, people can.
Yeah, I have a website. Yes, and it goes Charles Stein Poet, one word, and Charles Stein Stein Poet.com at yahoo.com. Charles Stein Poet at yahoo.com.
Yeah, so it's also charlessteinpoet.com, and your lovely poetry on there, beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Inspired by Jupiter.
Well, we didn't go into the actual astrological meanings of Jupiter. What is your Jupiter related to the astrological entity?
Well, I'll refer people to the lecture in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks again, Charles. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Okay, great.
Take care. And if people want to learn more about the Aetherius Society, they can go to aetherius.org.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Happy birthday.
Thanks, Charles. Bye-bye.
Bye.